Victoria Police has been forced to speak publicly about confronting CCTV footage that's emerged of 6 police officers who are now under investigation after an incident at the alleged victim's home late last year. In September 2017, officers were called to John's home for a welfare check.
Okay, further clarification of what that welfare check was actually contained in another Channel 9 story.
This all unfolded in late 2017 when the man's psychologist had concerns for his deteriorating mental health and she put in a call to 000.
This is one of those news stories that when you look at it as it's presented, it just seems unlikely. A lot of it just seems unlikely and makes you think, well, is there more to this? Which I think there is. Now, the first thing to consider is the circumstances for which the police arrived at this guy's house. Now, they've said a psychologist called 000 for a welfare check. Now, if it had have just been over the last few consultations, he's not travelling too well, can you go around and see him? Psychologists would have rung the local police station and they would have just wandered around and checked up on him. But the psychologist have rang 000, which indicates that there was an immediate requirement for police to be at this guy's house. But from the footage, there's no one else at the house except this guy. So it would only have been to prevent imminent self-harm. So that sort of sets the scene for the police turning up there. But they've sent 6 big guys, men. Now, with all the women that are in the police force these days, surely they could have had 1 or 2 women who would probably be more of a balance with going to a welfare case rather than going to a crime scene where there's a brawl going on. You've got apparently a guy that's imminent self-harm is about to happen and someone needs to talk to him. But there's no women. They just said 6 big guys straight there, straight to his door. So let's just watch what happens next.
The disability pensioner, who suffers mental illness and is also in cancer remission, asked the officers to leave, but quickly things turned physical, with officers dragging him down his front steps onto his yard.
So if you're to believe everything that's been told in this story so far, what happened next, what happened then was just didn't line up with what you would expect. You would have thought there would have been maybe a 5-minute, 10-minute negotiation. He asked them to leave. Hopefully they know his name. Come on, John. Out you come. Come on, mate. We're back at his psychologist. Yeah, this kind of thing. No, they somehow managed to get the door open. And without any kind of aggression from him, they suddenly get him onto the ground and then just start laying into him without any provocation whatsoever. So at this stage, I'm starting to suspect there's a lot more to this.
They're pinning him down, one repeatedly beating him with a baton. At one stage, an officer puts his boot on John's head. The police officers use capsicum spray on him twice, the second time while he's lying motionless on the ground. One of the officers taunts him, saying, "Do you like that? Do you like that?" Just as disturbing is when John's slouched sitting on the grass and the officers use a hose to spray his face. The alleged victim sounds like he's crying or moaning as the high-pressure hosing continues. Then one of the policemen pulls out his mobile phone and starts filming, urging his colleague to spray him again while he records on his phone.
At this point in time, I was actually reminded of the footage from Minto, which I'm still following up on. And it's very similar. At Minto, they set the stage, with all the cameras around, and then Greeno runs up right to that point in the lawn where that Sevi tries to bash him, and it was just a theatre. It was all just set up for the cameras. And I'm just getting that feeling with this situation here, because they go to his house. Somehow he's got high-res cameras to capture everything, and they would have seen those cameras. There's police would see cameras all the time, and they've gone out there, and now they've been called there, they've got reason to be there, and ordinarily police would seize any camera footage. They'd see the cameras and know what they've done and seize the footage, but they don't. Somehow the footage ended up with Fairfax. And look, it just looks to me like, again, like Minto, this looks like some kind of a stage. Now, just play a bit more of which they haven't got in this report, but they had in another report, which is a little bit more, shows a bit more sort of close up and sound. It sounds a bit suspicious as well. So we'll watch that.
You want that? Oh, you want that? It smells good, doesn't it? Get your hands behind your back.
This footage came from an earlier report, first thing in the morning, and it's actually got the sound. They don't play the sound in the second show, in the second report, only in the first report, which the sound really adds to the dramatics. I don't know why they didn't include the sound in that in the second report, but this was in the first report. And the question asks, well, since we're doing security cameras, generally they're just set up to capture vision. They don't capture audio. How is there audio with this? And secondly, the sound of him bashing that leg, just look, to me it just sounds like he's like that's a fleshy part of his leg, and it sounds like he's hitting something hard. So that's two things: is the sound, the fact that there's sound, and the sound of his leg just being hit just doesn't sound right. But look, maybe it is. Just wouldn't seem right to me. But there's a little bit more.
Oh, my back! Get your hands behind your back.
Now, is that the fakest bit of acting from the guy that's ended up on the ground? Oh, my back. Now, if he's mentally ill, I thought he might have screamed some. He's just been bashed, had the shit bashed out of him. I would have thought more than my back. And listen to it. Go back and listen to how he sounds. It just sounds so bad and so fake. So, you would have thought, yeah, he would have shouted some profanities like them, you know, but they're the ones who shouted profanities. He's just putting on his sound. You would have thought he'd be going, fuck off, you cunts, or get off me, you bastards, or something like that. But no, that's what he comes out with. And again, where did this audio come from? And why isn't it shown in the later reports? Why was it only in the first report? Because this is like, you know, dramatic stuff. I think they kind of start to leave this. I caught this audio earlier on. I think they might be leaving it out because it really shows it to, I don't know, just not be real. So next up, we're going to have a quick look at what the Victorian Police response is. And I think this is what I think is part of their conditioning psyop. I'll get to the details of it in a second, but let's just quickly recap. First of all, this footage. Now, this footage wasn't taken on mobile phones the police didn't know about and has surfaced. This was on cameras that would be clearly visible to them, which they had the power to seize if they wished to, and they didn't. And it's gotten into the media. The second thing is, there's this stage. You got the two cameras, not just the one, the two. And if you look when the guy's bashing his leg's facing clear out. There's no one else around, so you can clearly see the bashing of the leg. So and the fake acting as well. And even the fact that 6 cops turn up to what was supposedly a guy who's got mental illness problems and were called there by a psychologist as a welfare, personal welfare matter. Instead of talking to him, and you know, when he says, "Oh, yeah, go away, don't come in," instead of spending 5 minutes talking to him, they suddenly got the door open and pulled him right in front in his front yard where the 2 cameras are aimed at. So to me, there's enough here to suggest that this looks like a bit of a staged setup.
Assistant Commissioner Luke Cornelius this morning said he's concerned by the footage.
That behaviour, if it was real, where 6 people get on top of another one and bash and pepper spray and then hose them down like they're a dog, and then filmed it. Okay, picture it. If this was just a gang doing this to an individual, say, or well, there you go, say a mentally ill individual, a disability pensioner, all 6 would be straight into custody and would obviously be put before a magistrate in charge. Specifically with this evidence, particularly with this evidence, they would be charged and would be convicted and would be serving either most likely a jail term. But, and this is what they're doing, they're shoving this down our throat, that we can do all that, and then all that happens to the police is that they are concerned, and that's the psyop. They're conditioning people that there is a double standard. These guys are actors, the cops are acting out, they probably rehearsed this garbage, and it's all going to be on camera. Don't seize any of the footage. Can you recall how, like, thanks to investigations by PK and Co, that they seized all the footage from every shop on Burke Street? Like, they love seizing it, locking it down, and then only leaking what they want to leak, or to show what they want to show. They didn't do this with this footage. Look at it, it's ridiculous. It's so plain. This is a psyop.
Saying his colleagues need to be held to account.
We recognise this, that internal scrutiny is not in and of itself enough. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. And Victoria Police is very clear that we welcome external scrutiny and are committed to addressing concerns the wider community may have.
Well, the concern anyone would have is why these guys haven't been sacked and been put before the court and serving jail time for physically harming another human being. Just forget their costumes, forget their badges. That's what these guys did. And also, this was back in September last year. So we're looking at 6-7 months now since this occurred. So where has this footage been for the last 6 or 7 months? These guys have just had their jobs. Oh, well, maybe that could be their reasoning is that, oh, look, it was a long time ago. They haven't done it since. We'll let them keep their jobs. No action taken. And that could certainly be a justification for just not worrying about it. Oh, it's just been such a long time. Don't worry about it. So how was it that it's taken 6 months, 7 months for this footage to come to light with Fairfax? Okay, so it's on the guy's supposed security cameras that he's got at his house. Okay, so the bashing's over. I don't know whether the police left, whether he went for hospital treatment, or that's been left out. And his cameras only keep footage for, so much time. So they've obviously sort of captured it at that time, within a week or two. So, okay, so he's got this footage, and what is the location and timeline for it, for how long he held it for, when he decided to give it to Fairfax, when Fairfax decided to make it public? See where I'm going with this, can't you? This should have been out within 2 weeks, if it was real, that is. Now, no doubt, after this footage, this guy's going to get compensation. Has he been compensated for being injured? Has he been compensated for participating in this?
Now, presumably those police officers didn't know about the security cameras that were recording on John's home.
She's saying, presumably they didn't know about the cameras. Given the attention to detail that Victoria Police have when it comes to video cameras and footage, I would say, presumably, they knew the cameras were there.
They were installed by John after his house was burgled.
For a mentally ill guy on a disability pension, he's got his wits about him, that's for sure, and he seems to have funds enough that he's got his car out the front there, so his mental disability doesn't stop him from driving. He can drive, and he has enough funds to fund this quite high quality video system. I would have thought for a burglary, your first port of call would have been a burglar alarm, just with sensors and a siren out the front. That's the usual way to deter burglars. People put cameras out there too, I guess. But yeah, they're just sort of conveniently, they don't say how long ago he was burgled, just like last week, 2 years ago, just he's put them there. The camera, look, there's an explanation for why there are cameras there to catch this scene. And again, they got him, it just looks so much like Minto, doesn't it? Out on a lawn, there's cameras from 2 angles, and I like the way how they put his leg to be so exposed, so when they bash it, oh, you can't make any mistake. So, and the police just presumably didn't know that these cameras were there. Yep.
The 6 police officers involved are still working and still on the beat while IBAC investigates the incident.
So here's where they're really getting down into the psyop area, and they're really sticking it to us. So what they're saying there is, this is horrific, they've been bashed, but hey, they're still on duty. Like I said, it was 6 months ago, they've been on duty for 6 months. And like 2 issues, could these guys be trusted not to do it again? And so the secondly is, should they have been, there's been some consequences for what they've done. So you can see from the lack of urgency that nothing is going to be done. And what this does is it starts to condition people and set a precedence that if police do this, just come to expect it. It's just part of the job. Notice that they're all wearing blue gloves. I don't know why police, you don't normally see police wearing just blue gloves everywhere. Why did they bring the blue gloves with them? Well, they just keep them in the glove box in case they need them? Oh, maybe they do, but why they even got them on? What are they worried about? What, evidence? What, they're worried about contaminating evidence or something? That's just a weird thing. But off to the side a little bit there. But look, as far as this psyop goes, this is what it's about. It's about conditioning people that, when police just do these heavy-handed tactics on a mentally ill person, which I'll get to in a second, in my wrap-up, is that this is the norm now. This is just what happens.
Now, it's not known how long this IBAC investigation will take, but once complete, IBAC will make recommendations to the Chief Commissioner, Graham Ashton. The fate of those 6 police officers will then be in his hands as he considers the findings of that investigation and whether or not the officers will be dismissed.
Oh, Ashton's back, is he? Oh, look, he's going to be a safe pair of hands for this. He's totally trustworthy. He'll deal with it as it should be, to community expectations. But I don't want to preempt what his findings are going to be, but let's just have a quick look at the police statement that they put out.
Our officers make mistakes like anyone else, and when that happens, we learn from them.
So from this, we could tell that they view this behaviour as poor behaviour within its ranks, and they've just made a mistake. So what would be criminal behaviour by anyone else not wearing the costume with the badge is just poor behaviour. So I think Mr. Ashton might be, having a look at this statement and probably will be taking this approach in his final decision. So in wrapping this thing up, look, to me it's a psyop. The bad acting, the guy going, God, that was bad. I'll play that at the end. You can listen to that again. And the fact that the cameras were there, and look, it's got their investigation underway. 6 months, 7 months later, they're kicking off the investigation now. Well, that length of time is going to impact on it, and it gives them an excuse to just let them off. And that's what they want to do. They've intentionally let this video out and shown it, or first of all be taken, and then it's been shown. And look, they've mentioned Fairfax Media, but I think they're pretty well compromised as far as all this sort of psyop garbage goes. They're in it up to their ears. All the media are. So it's fully complicit and compliant with the government and the police force, especially the Victorian police force. That's another thing. This has happened in Victoria again. Everything, every bit of psyop and terror-related garbage. And look, even though they haven't mentioned terror here, I'll just get on to the second part of the psyop. So the first part is they want to start to condition people that this is okay for police to do. At first it shocks you, and there's a lot of excuses, and then it'll happen again, and then eventually people go, what can you do? That's the first part of it. The second part is that the circumstances are that a psychologist rang about someone who was mentally ill, and then the police turned up and did this. So how easy is it to get diagnosed as mentally ill? Now, if you recall a well-known truth, what he said was that when he went to the police station, they tried to get him to do a psych assessment. Now, I can't remember, it was quite a while ago and his videos are gone, but I know they wanted him to see a psychologist. Now, he didn't end up doing it. I think he just left. And because they had no basis for keeping him, there's nothing they could have done. But think about what could have happened and what could happen now. Say you're a truther, you're putting out videos, and you've come to the attention of these guys. They pay you a visit and can drum up any reason to get you down to the station, and someone could be, say they're offended or whatever, they're taking you down there to one of those intervention order interviews or whatever they want to do. Rather than announce to you that you're going to see a psychologist, they just send one in to talk to you and you don't even know. And then at the end they say they're a psychologist. And then they get your Medicare records and stamp you as having mental problems because you aren't quite all okay with government policy and the trajectory of the economy, which is going downhill, and you want to do something about it, but it's against the government, and they've now got mentally ill on your records. So this psychologist, or you're going about your business with your truth stuff, and they decide that you're becoming a bit influential and you're starting to make a bit of a difference, and the psychologist calls, or in quotation marks, calls the police. You've got no proof whether the psychologist did or didn't because they're all part of the same group. Police turn up at your door, pull you out, give you a bit of a touch-up, a bit of a shot across the bow, and, you know, even if you capture it on camera, even if you report it, oh, look, you know, that's just part of the job with the police. That was a bit of poor behaviour, and it gets accepted as that. So they could be just another avenue that they're going to use to control people. Because I don't think it's any coincidence that this whole scene with the police and turning up and the psychologist, that it's related to a mental health issue. They specifically said that. And that's just, like, it's just no coincidence. So they're trying to tie this kind of behaviour with by the police to how they look like they're going to deal with mentally, who they deem, diagnosed as, mentally unwell people.
Here in Victoria, under the Mental Health Act, officers can use force if they believe someone suffering from a mental illness is a threat to themselves or to others' safety.
Oh, my back! Get your hand behind your back. My back!